Welcome to the presentation for the I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project. TxDOT welcomes you to the presentation for the proposed improvements to I-35 from the I-35 I-410 South Interchange in San Antonio to FM 1103 in Schertz, Texas. This presentation is divided into two parts, an introductory presentation and a public comment session. The introductory presentation will first introduce our project team and discuss the meeting format. We will then provide an overview of the project history and proposed improvements, and will dive into more detailed discussion of the project's design, function, access points, environmental considerations, funding, and construction. We will discuss how you can find additional information and provide input about the project, as well as what the next steps are in the process. TxDOT is conducting this public hearing for the I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project to present the proposed improvements and receive public feedback. After each presentation, there is an opportunity to present verbal comments for the official record. Questions will be answered in a public hearing report that will be posted online after the comment period closes. If you have comments but did not speak at the public hearing session, there are many additional ways to provide feedback. Submit your comment by email, through the online open house, or via mail to the project office address shown here. Please note that all written comments must be postmarked or emailed by March 9, 2015 in order to be included in the public record. Finally, we will post the public hearing report on the project website, and we will notify you by email to let you know when it is available. The I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project is a culmination of a decades-long series of studies conducted for the I-35 corridor in Northeast Bexar County and portions of Comal and Guadalupe counties. Efforts to address the ever-growing population and traffic congestion in this area began in 1996 with a major investment study and gained momentum with the I-35 Corridor Advisory Committee's 2011 MI-35 plan and the Planning and Environmental Linkages, or PELT study, that was completed in 2012. Based on the results of these studies and additional technical analysis, TxDOT is recommending transportation improvements to I-35 from the I-35 I-410 South Interchange in San Antonio to FM 1103 in Schertz. Before we discuss the specific improvements that are being proposed, let's first discuss the process by which these improvements have been evaluated and recommended for further development. The I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project is being evaluated through an environmental assessment, or EA study, which must meet specific guidelines established by the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA. An EA identifies the need and purpose for improvements and examines project alternatives, cost and funding, regional and project-level tolling analysis, traffic data, and potential environmental impacts. Late last year, we completed development of project schematics in a draft EA. Recently, TxDOT assumed federal authority for all environmental reviews of transportation projects funded through the Federal Highway Administration. Public input is an important part of the environmental study process. We're asking for your input on the analysis results and recommendations included in the draft EA document. The purpose of the proposed project is to implement a transportation alternative that improves mobility in the I-35 corridor in a manner that will manage vehicle congestion, promote efficient use of existing transportation facilities, minimize impacts to the natural and built environment, and complement other modes of transportation and economic development initiatives in the region. The proposed project is needed to address increasing traffic demand and congestion, inadequate roadway capacity, and limited integration of I-35 with other existing and planned transportation modes. The ability to meet this purpose and need is one of the measures by which project alternatives are evaluated in the EA. Population growth is one of the biggest contributing factors to the increasing congestion within the project area. Over the next 25 years, the three counties in which the project is located are projected to experience significant growth. The population in Comal and Guadalupe counties is anticipated to increase 100% or more during this time. This population growth closely relates to traffic growth in the areas as shown in this slide. Between 1995 and 2012, traffic along the project corridor increased by over 60% according to TxDOT Transportation Planning and Programming Division traffic data. By 2035, it is expected to increase by an additional 47% based on traffic modeling conducted by the I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project Study Team. Three segments of the project area are already among the most congested roadway segments in Texas, as ranked by the Texas A&M Transportation Institute and TxDOT. We anticipate that the congestion along these segments will only continue to worsen in the future as population and traffic continue to increase in the area. As mentioned, a number of previous studies and plans were used to develop the alternatives proposed in the draft EA. These studies included the I-35 Planning and Environmental Linkages Study, completed in December 2012. This study incorporated input from 4 rounds of public meetings and technical community advisory committee meetings, and recommended evaluating a build alternative to add capacity to the existing I-35 and a no-build alternative. The I-35 Corridor Advisory Committee Plan, released in August 2011, also recommended adding capacity to I-35 in this area, while the Alamo Area MPO Metropolitan Transportation Plan more specifically recommended adding toll lanes to this section of I-35 due to the lack of traditional funding sources for improvements. Since the Pell study was completed, TxDOT took a closer look at I-35 traffic, engineering, and environmental data for the recommendation from the Pell study to add capacity to I-35. TxDOT identified a project alternative that would meet the need and purpose, and coordinated with the Federal Highway Administration to identify the project limits and the appropriate level of environmental documentation required. Based on the coordination with FHWA, it was determined that an environmental assessment, an EA, will be the appropriate NEPA classification for the project. All EAs developed under NEPA must consider both a build and a no-build alternative. The no-build alternative serves as a benchmark against which the build alternative is compared. In the no-build alternative, no transportation improvements are made within the project limits, except those that are already programmed and reasonably expected to occur regardless of the outcome of this project. This slide depicts what the no-build alternative would generally look like in the project area. Through the EA study, we have determined that the no-build alternative would not meet the purpose and need for the improvements because existing and planned improvements alone would not adequately address mobility and capacity expansion needs in the area. Now let's look at the build alternative. The build alternative for the I-35 Northeast San Antonio expansion project adds 2 elevated managed lanes in each direction on I-35 from I-410 South to FM 1103 with direct connectors at I-410 South, I-410 West, and Loop 1604. Operational improvements are also proposed, as well as interim access to the proposed managed lanes facility between Loop 1604 and FM 1103. A managed lane is a travel lane that operates separately from the main lanes. Travel on these lanes is managed through a combination of pricing, vehicle eligibility, and access control strategies to achieve faster, more reliable speeds. The elevated managed lanes would provide additional, more reliable capacity on I-35 with as minimal right-of-way, construction, and traffic control impacts as possible. All existing main lanes and frontage roads would remain non-tolled. Managed lanes also complement other transportation modes by providing a more reliable route for transit and by encouraging high-occupancy vehicle use. According to a study conducted by the American Public Transportation Association, almost 70% of people between ages 18 and 34 use multiple travel options several times or more each week. The I-35 Northeast San Antonio expansion project is being planned with the transportation needs of future generations in mind. The configuration of the proposed managed lanes in relation to the existing main lanes would vary south and north of FM 3009. For the section south of FM 3009, the proposed elevated managed lanes would generally be constructed between the existing main lanes and frontage roads. However, north of FM 3009, the managed lanes would cross over the I-35 general-purpose main lanes and drop down into the middle of the northbound and southbound general-purpose main lanes. This is where the managed lanes would go from elevated to at grade, continuing down the middle of I-35 until they tie into the I-35 main lanes and end just north of FM 1103. The proposed improvements would require reconstruction of the bridges and intersections at FM 2252, Old Wiederstein Road, and FM 1103. North of FM 3009, the existing main lanes would also need to be moved farther out to make room for the at-grade section of the managed lanes in the middle. This widening would require some additional right-of-way, as well as relocation of the existing I-35 entrance and exit ramps in this area. but would also allow us to reconfigure the interchange ramps to a pattern that improves mobility. All existing main lanes and frontage roads would remain free for all traffic. Now let's move on to a discussion of the potential impacts associated with the build alternative. Along with determining whether or not proposed alternatives meet the purpose and need for improvements, an EA examines potential environmental impacts associated with those proposed improvements. These include potential impacts to natural resources such as air, water, and vegetation, to cultural resources such as historic sites and structures, to socioeconomic resources such as neighborhoods, businesses, and parks. The EA also looks at how much additional right-of-way may be required for the project, as well as potential changes to local and regional traffic patterns that may result from implementation of the improvements. I will briefly cover some of the potential impacts that were identified through the draft I-35 Northeast San Antonio Expansion Project EA. This slide shows some of the specific potential impacts that were identified through the EA. The proposed project would require approximately 26 acres of additional right-of-way, which would affect approximately 68 parcels in the study area, a total of 1 residence, 2 businesses, portions of 2 parking facilities, 2 signs, 11 billboards, and 1 sewage lift station are anticipated to be displaced by the proposed project. Other anticipated impacts include changes to the way the existing roadway looks due to the addition of the elevated managed lanes. The EA also identified specific areas where the proposed project may create additional noise, which we will discuss in just a moment. Additional potential impacts include those that typically occur during construction, such as temporary changes in traffic movement and increased lighting and noise impacts associated with construction. There are no disproportionate impacts on minority or low-income populations anticipated for this project. TxDOT offers relocation assistance for the owners of all parcels that would be affected by the proposed project. Acquisition and relocation assistance will be in accordance with the TxDOT Right-of-Way Acquisition and Relocation Assistance Program, which is consistent with the U.S. Department of Transportation policy. All property owners from whom property is needed are entitled to receive just compensation for their land and property. TxDOT held meetings with potential affected property owners in October 2014 and will continue to coordinate with these individuals should the project move forward to construction. Additional information about the potential right-of-way impacts and TxDOT relocation and reimbursement program is available at the TxDOT San Antonio District Office. TxDOT will also offer the opportunity for adjacent property owners within the areas identified for potential noise abatement to participate in a noise workshop to determine if abatement measures are desired. The workshop will be held after the EA is complete. The proposed improvements are anticipated to cost approximately $1.3 billion. TxDOT does not currently have funding available to construct the project using traditional funding sources, and the MPO has listed it as a managed lanes project in its long-range transportation plan. This is one of the reasons why the project is being proposed as managed lanes. The managed lanes would operate separately from the main lanes. Travel on these lanes would be managed through a combination of pricing, vehicle eligibility, and access control strategies to achieve faster, more reliable speeds. Pricing and eligibility requirements will be set based on the regional toll policy. The current Alamo Regional Mobility Authority toll policy states that transit vehicles, registered carpool users with a tag account, and vehicles exempted by state law such as emergency and military vehicles could use the managed lanes for no charge. All other vehicle types, such as single occupancy vehicles, will be charged a toll fee ranging from 17 cents to 50 cents per mile. All existing main lanes and frontage roads would remain free for all traffic. The project would most likely be constructed in phases. A financial plan and the project management plan are currently being developed. If you would like additional project information, remember to keep visiting www.txdot.gov, keyword search I-35 Northeast San Antonio. After the formal public comment period is closed and all input has been reviewed and addressed, a final EA and schematic will be prepared and submitted for approval. We anticipate that this will happen sometime this summer. Once the final EA is approved, we can then move forward with specific plans for design and construction of the project. Questions will be answered in a public hearing report that will be posted online after the comment period closes. Please remember, if you choose to submit your comments later by mail, they must be postmarked or emailed no later than March 9, 2015.